it's Presley at ActOutGames.com here, and today we are going to be reviewing Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell.
So Rainbow was one of the authors that was at NerdCon, and so I was unfamiliar with her. And
I was not completely.
You had heard of Fangirl.
I had heard of Fangirl
right.
Because one of the booktubers that I watched, Poland and Anna's Books, had it. Like, she was doing like a bookshelf tour, and she mentioned it, and she mentioned it in a few of the videos that she'd been watching.
Right.
But
we read it
yeah.
as part of getting ready to go to NerdCon, and I couldn't be happier that we did.
Yes, it
right?
was really good.
Yeah, so I can't say enough good things about this book. Like, I loved it.
Yes.
I really loved it. I listened to the audiobook, and the narrator was fantastic in it.
And you've actually had like the college experience. Well, I haven't yet.
And
so.
I thought, yeah, I'll say, I thought that was maybe the best part of it. Or, I don't know, there was a lot of good parts about it. Yeah. But one of the best parts about it was that it was sort of an accurate college experience, right? It wasn't like this crazy, like hyper realistic or like all these like amazing things are going on. Like the book I'm reading right now is about a person that goes to college and he's like the best in his class and like best in his generation and like all of these amazing things. And like it wasn't necessarily like that. It was a lot more realistic and a lot more true to kind of what my college experience, and I think a lot of people's college experiences are like. And one of the things that will happen a lot is like people who write really good dialogue. A lot of times that dialogue is, you would call it sort of hyper realistic, right? In that people talk more, they're more witty than people really are. You try and condense dialogue when you write because you don't want these, like a conversation that would string out for a long time. In real life, you want to make it happen in a couple of pages or in a few lines, and so you condense conversations and just leave the witty parts in, and so people speak in ways that are extra witty, right? And that didn't happen as much in this book. Like the people were really witty and clever, but they were like witty and clever in a way that I remember us kind of being in college. We kind of talked the way that they talk, and so some of the extra witty stuff, it felt like was reserved for the narrator. So like the narrator and some of the internal dialogue and stuff like that had some of the extra clever lines, but a lot of the dialogue was kind of real, and the way that they interacted with each other was kind of reminded me a lot of my college experience, other than like not being a fanfic writing girl. But like knowing and hanging out with people like that, it reminded me of like me and my friends and stuff, and I thought it was really beautifully written.
Yes, it was really good.
So you want to talk a little bit, why don't you talk a little bit about what it's about?
Okay, so it's about, like he said, I'll kind of briefly mention, a fanfic writing girl. And so there's this big series that is the Harry Potter of this universe called Simon Snow. And she basically writes Drarry, which is Draco and Harry. So she basically writes that. She
writes like a slash fiction
with
the two main male characters. And they are enemies, like Draco and Harry are, but in her version of the universe, they fall in love.
Yes.
Right. And it becomes like the fanfic. Like people really sort of revere her fanfic, and she has tens of thousands of people reading it. And they had gotten, there's 8 books in the series, and the 7th book has come out a couple of years ago, I guess, probably in this book, and the 8th book is about to come out. And so a lot of the fanfic writers are writing their 8th book, like their fanfic version of the 8th book. And so she's trying to finish her 8th book, which is called Carry On.
And that actually is a book.
Yeah, and so Rainbow just wrote the book Carry On, which was the fanfic from this book. But so she's trying to finish her Carry On book before the 8th book comes out. And she's going to college, and she's dealing with her twin sister who goes to college at the same time, and their dad, who's kind of manic depressive ad agency guy, and like all of these like real world drama that she's trying to deal with while she's trying to write this fanfic and fit in college at the same time.
And this is actually a book that's about the real world, but it also put in a little bit of fantasy in there too, with like looking at the Simon Snow books. Like at the end of each chapter, they had this little excerpt from her fanfic or from Simon Snow.
That's right.
So you could kind of see a little bit of the plot, and she also read her fanfic. So, and a little bit of the 8th book. So,
oh, like, yeah, she would read her fanfic. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
so
so
she would read out loud.
You could kind of see that.
Right.
And see what was going on in Simon Snow, which makes me really, really want to read the Simon Snow.
You're right. No, so we'll definitely read Carry On. Like, there's no doubt we're going to read Carry On, right? And then, yeah, I would love it if she would write the Simon Snow books, right? Yes. I would love to read those. I can't, for me, like the story was really captivating. Like I said, I really related to the characters, and it was very witty, and I love the way they interacted with each other. But just from the craft of writing, it's one of the best books that I've read in a really long time. And I was lucky enough to get to speak with her for just a second at NerdCon and tell her how much I appreciated like the rhythm of her writing and the cadence of her writing. Like if you want to learn how to write just from a flow perspective, like you can't do better than this book. Like this is a book that I'm going to go back and I'm going to read it when I'm writing, because I want my writing to sort of flow and carry like that. And
one of the examples that you gave is it gets tiring if you read too much real time, which I'm trying to get better at, because I write a lot of real time.
It's scene is what that's called, right? Yeah.
So it gets kind of tiring if you read too much of that, and it's for me, it's especially in books that I get really into, because I'm in those books. I'm in these situations, and I get tired when the characters are doing complicated things a lot. So then you have this kind of like internal dialogue or a narrator
summary,
or like a flashback. So yeah, you have the summary, but sometimes the summaries can get too long, and then you have to come back to the dialogue and skip back a few paragraphs. And I only really realized until I read this book. I didn't realize until I read this book that I'm not actually really forgetful when I don't know what's going on after a really long summary.
No, I mean, it's hard to do well when you're writing, right? You don't want to have like 8 pages in a book of dialogue, right? So you want to break them up with little things, and like when you're having a conversation, a lot of times you start thinking about the next thing you're going to say while the person's still talking, and so capturing that in the book and in the flow of dialogue especially, and having like a couple of lines of dialogue and then pull back and talk about her remembering something from her past, or summarize something that happened, or her describing the way that he looks or something, and then coming back into the dialogue. But like you said, it's not so far spaced apart that you kind of forget the dialogue and you use the thread of the you lose the thread of the dialogue. Like it's brilliantly written. Like it's really artfully done, and in a way that I mean I can't even think of another book that I would go back to and say it's the best thing craft-wise that I've read since I read this. Like there's not another book that I really go back to that does that as beautifully as it's done in this book. So like I love the story and like the craft of it, just the flow of the writing, like the inside out. So like not like sentence structure, and like it's not Douglas Adams like crazy witty words and word choices and sentence structures that make you think about the writing. The writing kind of stays out of the way, so it's more like the first Hunger Games book is one that I usually talk about when I think about that. Like the first Hunger Games book was all about the story and the characters and stuff, and so the writing just needed to kind of get out of the way and not be distracting so that you could get the story into you.
But this was kind of, for me, it was kind of both, because like I would read a little bit and then I would kind of stop myself from reading to think about what was happening. But like there were very prominent, like I could very well imagine what was going on in the book. And I could see what the characters looked like, and actually, the more descriptions that happened in the book, like, the better it was. So, I really liked it because when you first meet someone, you're not taking in every point of their, like, you don't see exactly what they look like, and you don't memorize every little detail of them. And she did this, like, really, really well, where she would, like, when she first met this person, she would just basically describe them like brown hair. And shirt.
Speaking when she first met him and said that he looked like the kind of guy that would have a stowage ticket on the Titanic, like that's I laughed out loud. So I was listening to the audiobook, and I listen like while I run or while I take a walk, and usually I take a walk pretty late at night after everybody's gone to bed, because it's kind of, you know, I want to interact with the kids and stuff while everybody's awake. And so after everybody goes to bed, I take my walk, and so it's like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm walking through the neighborhoods or running through the neighborhoods doing these things, and I'm listening to the book on my headphones and stuff. And like while I was listening to this one, it was almost guaranteed once a night that I would just like burst out into laughter at a line or kind of a turn of phrase or something. And so just like in this back alley behind somebody's house at 12:30 in the morning, I start laughing hysterically while I'm running by their house, right? I was always self-conscious of it and stuff, with really funny, like clever turns of phrase and descriptions and stuff. I thought that was really great. Yeah, so I loved it. I can't wait to read more of her stuff, and she was super nice in person. I'm really pleased to meet her as well, right? Anything else you want to say? Anything else you wanted to say?
Oh, yeah, we got it signed.
We did get it signed, yeah. And what happened when we got it signed?
She accidentally ripped the book and then wrote sorry.
Yeah, we had a little sticky note in here. So if you go through a signing line, a lot of times you'll put a sticky note on the book and write your name so that the author can see your name and know how to spell it and things like that. And so when she took the sticky note off, the page tore a little bit. And so she wrote sorry next to it. But it's very customized, right? It's all, yeah, it's awesome. The one thing, like we take these dust jackets off. When, you know, Presley read the book, I listened to it, but so we want to keep this in good shape. So we took this off and put it away and didn't get it out again until we came down here to shoot this. And we both noticed that the characters on the cover don't look at all like we pictured them, right?
I mean, Levi is close.
Yeah, he's not even close to how I pictured him. It's always funny when you see something like that because you just build such a mental image of what these characters look like in your head. And it was so descriptive without being like uber specific. So you had some freedom. Ooh. Hi, Cooper. You had some freedom for how you wanted to picture it in your head, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, it was really funny getting this out and being like, yeah, like a Baz and Simon, I'm actually pretty cool with. Baz and Simon look a little bit like I thought they looked, but yeah, the main characters actually don't.
It's a little bit of the opposite for me, where Simon is close-ish, and Baz is like almost not at all. And then Kath and Levi is really close to how I pictured him, and Kath, she had a little bit shorter hair, and actually she was blonde for most of the book, which is really weird to be describing as most of the book she was blonde. But my picture slowly changed the more descriptions that there were.
Yeah.
So she was so she had like brunette hair at the sort of while I was reading it, but I was at first, and then Rin didn't change though. Even though they're supposed to be identical twins, Rin had blonde hair.
Well, they can change their hair pretty easily. Yeah. And you figure as twins, they might even do that just to sort of distinguish themselves, right? So I thought it was fantastic. I love it. Read it, pick it up, get it. And it's a pretty quick read, and it's really super enjoyable. So I loved it. It's 10 out of 10 for me.
Yes.
What about you?
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I couldn't rate it any more highly. Definitely pick it up and read it. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. You want to sign us off?
So yeah, thank you for watching, and nice tomorrow. Bye!
Bye, guys.